So as the sun sets, Rick Pearson and Jim Edwards Jr. head the field for the Elf Clio Renault Sport UK Cup ahead of David Davies and Peter Sowerby, with Henry Taylor and Mark Burton on row 3 ahead of Matt Jackson and Daniel Buxton. Completing the top 10, David Gibson and Martin Johnson ahead of Stuart Clark and David Pearce. But as always, a capacity grid, but one car missing from the second row of the grid. Peter Sowerby, a non-starter, but a good start for Rick Pearson and Henry Taylor at the head of the field. The two silver and blue cars head off into darkness at the head of the pack. Now, who is going to be the first man out of riches? And it's a big slide for Jim Edwards Jr. And they said, well, what happens if Jim Edwards Jr. makes a porridge of this? And he's just gone and done it. Adrian Churchill also off at the first corner. And through Sear, it's Rick Pearson from Henry Taylor, Matt Jackson, Daniel Buxton in the yellow, then David Gibson running wide. Oh, and a spinner in the pack as well, Mark Burton, the ex-Fiesta racer, and he gets very close indeed to some of the traffic. Meanwhile, the headlights ablaze down the Revet Straight. It's like the M25 on steroids here at Snetterton in Norfolk. Number 33, Rick Pearson, heading away from Henry Taylor, and they're now opening the gap up on Matt Jackson in third place. Well, they were, but Matt Jackson does a blinder through the bomb hole. We're riding with him. And now it's all about defensive lines down into the Russell chicane. And already Rick Pearson weaving there, just watching his mirrors, no doubt. Takes the very tight line down in the chicane, determined not to leave a gap for Henry Taylor to slice up the inside. And all the time they're doing that, Matt Jackson's taking advantage and closing in. And number 88, Henry Taylor, already with a big dent in his door. Meanwhile, someone smokes his tyres down in the chicane. And round he goes. Number 4, Ray McDowell, narrowly avoided by Graham Holmes there in the number 14 car. And the safety car is coming out onto the track. Quite a few cars off in the gravel trap. There we see Mark Burton with his big slide on the second corner. Just watch how close he gets there to Graham Oliver's car. Lights up Graham Oliver's car with his rear lights. That really is on the limit. There's Fraser Powell and Adrian Churchill. Now both of those two drivers have now headed round into the pits to retirement. So this already proving a race of real attrition. Rick Pearson getting a real slingshot off the start line as the safety car pulls in. And a very slow Henry Taylor with Matt Jackson going all the way around the outside of him. Let's see if he can hold on round through Ridges. Closing in on race leader Rick Pearson. And I've got to say, Matt Jackson seems to have a demon chassis set up here. And he's going all the way around the outside of Sear. Now surely he can't make that stick. Oh yes he can, and he throws the car up over the concrete, but it's still wheel to wheel with the race leader. And all of a sudden Matt Jackson's gone from third to first, and he's now got a clear track ahead of him down the Revet Straight up to 125 miles an hour. And then it's going to be the last of the late breakers down into the S's. And there on the right-hand side, Rick Pearson tries to get his nose ahead, but oh, wow! And that's Daniel Buxton, and that is a demon piece of slipstreaming. He's slingshotting him in the way. Oh, he's on 2 wheels now, and he's on the dirt, and Daniel Buxton's lead has been a very brief one, but what a way to get to the head of the field. Daniel Buxton sliding down to third place as Matt Jackson regains the advantage. Rick Pearson still in second place. Now, Dan Buxton holding off now, third place, David Davies, and it's Davies, I think, who's gone through. Indeed, it is now. Henry Taylor up into fifth place. And going backwards down the field, Daniel Buxton. But what a run from 0 to hero, now back almost to 0 again as he drops back into the pack, now coming under pressure from Jim Edwards Jr., who's recovering from that first corner slide. But at the head of the field, Matt Jackson back in control. Rick Pearson going every inch of the way with him, though, as the two cars at the front make a little bit of a break now ahead of David Davies and Henry Taylor. Great atmospheric racing. Oh, and some leaning going on. And once again, it's that man, Dan Buxton, hustling Stuart Clark for that 5th place. Behind them, it's David Gibson in the red and blue Clio. And that is now turning into a great 4-car scrap, because closing in on them is Jim Edwards Jr. and a couple of other cars as well now starting to dive through in the darkness. But meanwhile, at the head of the field, race leader Matt Jackson has a clear windscreen. Well, relatively speaking, plenty of Snetterton bugs on it now. Turning into a warm and humid evening here, and the yellow car still extending its advantage over Rick Pearson. But now Rick Pearson starting to come under a bit of pressure from the Welshman David Davies. Then comes this tremendous battle. 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th places. Clark, Buxton, Gibson, and being caught all the time by Jim Edwards Jr. And Matt Jackson still extending his advantage as the two silver cars pursue through the chicane. Number 24 now, David Davies, right up on the tail of Rick Pearson. Henry Taylor going every inch of the way with him, and it's 3 silver cars in a row. 2nd, 3rd and 4th places. And David Davies got the speed up the straight into Riches here. And this, oh, and it's going to be a big squeeze down the inside. Can he get it slowed down enough to get round the corner? Yes, he can. A superb manoeuvre there. And straight away, Henry Taylor jumps onto the tail of Rick Pearson's car as Pearson loses momentum. Oh, and there's a big slide there, a nudge on the tail. And the brake discs going absolutely red hot on Rick Pearson's car. And they going door handle to door handle all the way down the Revet Straight, inches apart in the darkness at well over 120 miles an hour. Meanwhile, Matt Jackson is cruising at the head of the field. Is this going to be 2 wins in succession for Matt Jackson? It's looking good so far. And for third place, it's still number 88, Henry Taylor, the man from Battle in Sussex, leads the man from Fulham in London, Rick Pearson. But they are still in hot pursuit of Matt Jackson, the man from the West Midlands, extending his advantage at the head of the field. But he is now being pursued by the Flying Welshman, number 24, David Davies from Bridgend. And Davies making a bit of a break away from this battle for third and fourth places. Again, the brake discs going absolutely red hot in the darkness as the cars light their brake discs up under hard braking for the Russell chicane. It'll be the same now as the cars head up the start-finish straight, past the pits and back out into the darkness again. Up to Rich's corner, braking from 110 miles an hour down to 70. And behind the first 4 cars, another battle. David Gibson in 5th, followed by a 3-car train. Daniel Buxton, Edwards Jr. and Stuart Clark, 6th, 7th and 8th positions. Flat out, throttle still on the boards. Now onto the brakes again. Watch the brake disc light up as the cars turn in through Sear Corner. The brakes still red hot as they head out onto the straight. And this time Daniel Buxton running a little bit wide, but keeps the throttle absolutely buried in pursuit of David Gibson. But now going alongside of him, Jim Edwards Jr., the championship leader, on a fight back. Slid his way all the way down to the tail of the field. He's already up to 7th. He's got 6th place in his sights. And the set of headlights on the inside on the turn into the S's is still Daniel Buxton. He's not giving way yet. But Jim Edwards Jr. leaves him absolutely nowhere to go now. Loses momentum and sliding down the escape road there. Stuart Clark gets it all back together just in time to rejoin in his 8th position. Tremendous, oh, and flying over the curbs. That's the leader, Matt Jackson, kicking up the sparks one more time because that's under real pressure now from David Davies. And Davies is going to take this all the way to the checkered flag because the 3-car train has now caught up with the leader. And maybe Matt Jackson has been pushing just a little too hard too soon in this race. Perhaps a lack of experience. And there, oh, you can see, misses the apex by a mile, and straight through goes David Davies into the race lead. And Matt Jackson is now down in 2nd, and it looks like he's got tyre troubles because slides wide again. The yellow clear just doesn't want to turn in through Sear Corner at all. It's quick enough down the straights, but he doesn't have the traction, he doesn't have the grip, and that's going to be a real problem when he gets to the end and finds the S's. Still flat out though, top gear all the way down to the S's. David Davies now leads, Henry Taylor in 2nd place. We're riding in 3rd place. And a superb piece of late braking takes Henry Taylor through. And there's a bit of a biff and some contact, and David Davies spears off onto the grass. Bit of rally crossing for the Welshman, and straight away Matt Jackson tries to get his nose back alongside. Number 33 there, Rick Pearson also tries to go through, and he's done it as well. So down to the tail of the group now goes David Davies. So David Davies now from 1st down into 4th position. Meanwhile, it's Henry Taylor out in front now, and Henry Taylor doing a superb job to drive smoothly and open up the advantage as Rick Pearson hustles his way down the inside. A real banzai job there at the Russell chicane to move up into 2nd place. Matt Jackson obviously in all sorts of handling trouble. The question is, can he keep David Davies and Jim Edwards Jr. behind him now? Closing in again on the back of Rick Pearson's car. The brake lights go ablaze as the car's heading, and you can see there, he's just not got the grip. The car misses the apex by a country mile. And now David Davies is up ahead of Matt Jackson as well. Jackson drops down to 4th position. And those brake discs again blazing through the darkness, and tremendous racing all the way up and down the field in the Clio Cup. But at the head of the field, it's Henry Taylor now, and it looks as if Henry Taylor's on his way to his 2nd victory this season. The 2nd victory ever in the Elf Clio Renault Sport UK Cup, and that is going to take the championship back against Jim Edwards Jr. Cars head up to the S's, but still, as everybody knows, Renault Clio racing, it's never over till the checkered flag is well and truly waved, because It may well be that Matt Jackson's trying to pace himself. Oh, no, he's not. He's running out of grip. I was going to say he's trying to pace himself and bring his tyres back in, but another huge slide there at Coram for Matt Jackson in 4th place. 2 wheels on the grass at well over 100 miles an hour. And smoking the tyres, though, the race leader, Henry Taylor, coming under increasing pressure from this man, Rick Pearson. It's the Londoner once again closing in on the tail end of race leader Henry Taylor, the man from Sussex. Henry Taylor prepares his own car. Behind him, it's the Mark Fish Motorsport prepared car of Rick Pearson. And Henry Taylor really does have this car going very, very nicely indeed round Snetterton. Very precise handling, very clean driving style. No histrionics, gets the front wheel right up on the apex, runs the wheel over the curb, runs a little wide this time onto the straight, and that's maybe a chance for Rick Pearson. Pearson looks one side, then the other, and Rick Pearson right there in the slipstream. He'll get sucked along now behind the car in front because that's going to make a hole in the air. He'll be marginally quicker. The question is, can he use a slingshot to get out at the S's? And Henry Taylor dives across blocks one way, dives across blocks the other way. That is a manoeuvre worthy of Michael Schumacher, and Henry Taylor pulls that off absolutely to perfection. Clean defensive driving, and Henry Taylor stays ahead through the bomb hole. Now you'll see the little dip and then up, spits you out the other side to Coram, keeping the power absolutely nailed through the right-hander. Rear wheel balancing in the air, and the 2 leading Clios are going to go into the last lap of the race absolutely side by side. And through the final corner, both the cars using the curbs, both up onto 2 wheels, and it's still Henry Taylor ahead as the cars head for the checkered flag. What a way to finish the Renault Clio race in darkness here at Snetterton. An absolute classic, and Henry Taylor, a battling finish. 0.3 of a second from Rick Pearson. David Davies 3rd, Matt Jackson holding on to 4th, with Jim Edwards Jr., the championship leader, 5th, ahead of David Gibson.
Yeah, it certainly was incredible. Pretty pleased to have 3rd spot on the grid. I'd like the front row position, but unfortunately the boys pipped me to the post. Very bad start, a very poor start actually, not for me to do that. But I just had to work hard, and work hard I did. You know, it was a fantastic race. I felt quick out there. I could see I was picking up the boys, and I got in the lead at one point of the stage, and unfortunately someone tapped me and I went a bit pear-shaped, but I held it. And you know, I don't know where the hell I was, between 7th, 5th, 3rd, it was all, but I finished 3rd, so that was the result, you know.
Well, I mean, early on I didn't have the experience the guys that raced Fiestas last year had, and they were eating me up under braking, but what a phenomenal experience. Huge crowds, great atmosphere out there between the drivers, and it was a fantastic race. It was fair, it was clean, and it was beautiful. And I think all 3 of us have stood on the podium and said it was a race of our lives. It's certainly mine.
It's not. I mean, the first corner was quite dark. That was really where you needed your headlights, really. So, but sort of through the bomb hole and out round the back, it was all right, really. So, it was excellent. Though it feels so fast in the dark as well. Braking distance is brilliant.
Well, Henry Taylor's 2nd victory moves him to 3rd in the championship, but Jim Edwards Jr. is now 63 points ahead of Daniel Buxton, and Edwards has to be the favourite for the title. But there are still 4 more races to go. And with drivers like Henry Taylor, Rick Pearson and David Davies, every one is going to be a classic.